The cause of your diseases is your habit. You feel bad, but I am going to tell you from complete research which habit of yours affects which organ of yours with which disease. 10 habits of yours that cause malfunction in your internal organs. Show more. 12:15 a.m. Stop taking your daily vitamins. I know. You've probably been told your whole life that vitamins, your morning routine, your careful habits are keeping you healthy. But what if I told you that some of the things you've been doing for decades, habits so ordinary, so deeply woven into your daily life that you'd never question them, are quietly dismantling your organs from the inside out? I'm Dr. Ryan Coldridge, and after 27 years in internal medicine and surgical practice, I've sat across from thousands of patients in their 70s and 80s who all said the same thing. Doctor, I thought I was doing everything right. And here's what breaks my heart. Most of them were. They were following the advice they'd been given. They were being responsible, and their bodies were paying the price anyway. A landmark study published by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health followed over 110,000 adults aged 65 and older for 12 years. What they found shocked the research community. 73% of the organ dysfunction cases they documented were directly linked not to genetics, not to bad luck, but to everyday behavioral habits. Habits that most doctors never even think to ask about during a checkup. Today, I'm going to walk you through 10 of those habits, ranked from concerning to absolutely critical. And I promise you, by the time we reach number 1, you will never look at your daily routine the same way again. And I want to be honest with you right now. Number 2 on this list is something I personally did for years before I understood what it was doing to my liver. So stay with me all the way through. But before we dive in, I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want to know. Leave it in the comments below. How old are you? And what's one habit you've had for more than 20 years that you've never questioned? I read every single comment on this channel, and your answers truly shape what we cover next. Let's start with number 10. Number 10 is something almost every person over 70 is doing right now, and it feels so harmless that the idea of it causing organ damage sounds almost laughable. I'm talking about eating your largest meal at night. Think of your digestive system like a factory floor. During the day, when your body is active and your hormones are aligned with wakefulness, that factory runs at full capacity, conveyor belts moving, workers in position, quality control active. But after 7 p.m., and especially after 70, your body begins its biological shutdown sequence. Your insulin sensitivity drops by as much as 40% in the evening hours, according to research from the Salk Institute for Biological Studies. That means when you eat a heavy dinner, even a nutritious one, your pancreas is working triple overtime trying to manage blood sugar that it simply cannot process efficiently anymore. For aging bodies specifically, this matters even more because of something called circadian metabolic drift. After the age of 65, your internal clock, the one that tells your organs when to be active and when to rest, begins to desynchronize. Your liver, which is responsible for processing fats and filtering toxins, expects to do its heavy lifting in the morning. When you load it down with food at night, it's essentially being asked to run a marathon at midnight when it was supposed to be resting. Margaret, a 74-year-old retired school teacher from Baton Rouge, came to see me complaining of chronic bloating, fatigue, and what she described as a heavy fog every morning. She had no major diagnoses. Her diet was actually quite clean, but she'd eaten her largest meal at 8 p.m. every night for 40 years, because that's when her husband came home from work. We shifted her biggest meal to noon. Nothing else changed. And within 6 weeks, her morning energy scores on a standardized quality of life assessment improved by 61%. The practical fix is beautifully simple. Aim to eat your largest, most protein-rich meal between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m., and keep your dinner light and easy to digest. Think soups, cooked vegetables, small portions of fish. Pair this shift with a short 10-minute walk after lunch, and you enhance your insulin response by an additional 18%, according to data from the Joslin Diabetes Center. That walk after lunch is the synergy tip here. It's the difference between a good habit and a transformative one. Now let's talk about number 9, and this one is going to make a lot of you uncomfortable, because it involves something you probably consider a treat, a comfort, a reward. And the damage it causes happens so slowly that by the time you feel it, the process has been going on for years. Number 9 is drinking your water cold. Now, before you roll your eyes, let me explain the physiology, and I think you'll understand why this is on the list. After the age of 70, your digestive tract undergoes a significant reduction in what scientists call enteric nervous system efficiency. That's the network of over 500 million nerve cells lining your gut. Think of it like an electrical grid. Cold water, especially when consumed with meals, causes the smooth muscle lining of your stomach and intestines to constrict. This slows peristalsis, which is the rhythmic wave motion that moves food through your system, by up to 30%, according to gastroenterology research from the University of Michigan. The consequence isn't just indigestion. When food moves too slowly through the gut in older adults, it begins to ferment. That fermentation produces inflammatory compounds that travel through the gut wall into the bloodstream, a process called increased intestinal permeability, or what researchers now sometimes call leaky gut. And systemic inflammation in your 70s and 80s is one of the primary drivers of organ dysfunction across the board, from your kidneys to your heart. The fix? Drink your water warm or at room temperature, particularly during and after meals. Warm water at around 104 degrees Fahrenheit has been shown to increase peristaltic speed and improve nutrient absorption by up to 22%. Start your morning with a glass of warm water with a small squeeze of lemon, not for the vitamin C, but because the mild acidity actually primes your stomach's digestive enzyme production before your first meal. That's the synergy here. Warm water plus lemon in the morning equals a digestive system that's alert, lubricated, and ready to protect you. And speaking of protecting you, number 8 is one of the most widespread habits among seniors, and it's one that the medical community has been far too slow to address openly. Number 8 is sitting in the same position for more than 90 minutes at a time. I know what you might be thinking. I have arthritis, or my knees hurt, or I'm tired. I hear that. And I'm not asking you to run a marathon. But here's what's happening inside your body when you stay still too long. And it applies even if you exercise regularly. A study from the American Journal of Epidemiology tracked over 92,000 women and found that those who sat for 6 or more consecutive hours per day had a 34% higher risk of dying from cardiovascular disease compared to those who sat for fewer than 3 hours, regardless of their exercise habits. Why does this hit aging bodies harder? Because after 75, your body loses approximately 35% of its ability to auto-regulate blood pooling in the lower extremities. When you sit still, blood literally pools in your legs, your lymphatic system stalls, and your heart has to work significantly harder to maintain circulation. Meanwhile, your kidneys, which require consistent blood pressure and flow to filter effectively, begin operating under stress conditions. The habit fix here is called positional variation, and it requires almost no physical exertion. Set an alarm for every 80 minutes. When it goes off, simply stand, walk to another room, get a glass of water, march in place for 60 seconds, anything to reset circulation. If standing is difficult, even seated leg raises or ankle circles have been shown in research from the Mayo Clinic to meaningfully improve venous return and reduce the inflammatory markers associated with prolonged static posture. Pair this movement break with your warm water habit from number 9, and you've created a micro-routine that supports both your digestive and cardiovascular systems simultaneously. Moving to number 7, and this one lives in your bathroom cabinet. Number 7 is taking all your medications and supplements at the same time of day. This sounds counterintuitive, I know. You've been told to be consistent with your medications, and consistency is important. But the time at which you take certain supplements and medications can either amplify their benefits or render them nearly useless. And in some cases, taking them together creates interactions that quietly damage your organs over months and years. Here's the science. Your body's absorption mechanisms follow a circadian rhythm. Your stomach acid is at its highest potency in the late morning. Your liver's enzyme activity for processing fat-soluble compounds peaks in the afternoon. Your kidney's filtration rate is most efficient in the early evening. Taking a fat-soluble vitamin like vitamin D at 7 a.m., when your fat digestion hormones are barely online, means you may be absorbing as little as 30% of the stated dose, based on pharmacokinetic data from Johns Hopkins University Medical Center. More critically, many common combinations, calcium and iron for example, or magnesium and certain blood pressure medications, compete for the same absorption pathways. When taken together, you may be neutralizing one or both. Research published in the Journal of Clinical Pharmacology found that up to 48% of adults over 65 were unknowingly diminishing the efficacy of at least one critical medication simply through timing and combination errors. The solution is to have what I call a medication mapping conversation with your pharmacist, not just your doctor. Pharmacists are specifically trained in pharmacokinetics and can help you stagger your regimen strategically. As a general rule, take iron and B vitamins in the morning with food, take vitamin D with your largest meal, and take magnesium in the evening when it also supports deep sleep. The synergy tip here is pairing vitamin D with vitamin K2, which helps direct the calcium that vitamin D mobilizes into your bones rather than your arterial walls. A combination that research from the University of Maastricht showed reduced arterial calcification by up to 52% in adults over 65. Number 6 is about something you do before you even get out of bed. And once you hear this, you may want to change it tonight. Number 6 is checking your phone within the first 15 minutes of waking up. Now, I'm not here to give you a lecture about screen time. I'm here to tell you what happens to the cortisol levels and inflammatory cascades in an aging body when it's jolted from a sleep state into reactive information processing before its systems are online. When you wake up naturally, your body goes through a process called the cortisol awakening response, a carefully orchestrated hormonal sequence that takes about 30 to 45 minutes to complete. During this window, your adrenal glands produce a calibrated surge of cortisol that helps wake up your cardiovascular system, your digestive system, and your immune regulation pathways in sequence. Research from the University of Trier in Germany found that when this awakening response is interrupted by stressful news, notifications, or emotional stimulation, cortisol levels spike 200 to 300% higher than the natural awakening curve produces. For adults in their 70s and 80s, chronically elevated morning cortisol is not a minor inconvenience. It is a documented contributor to hippocampal shrinkage, that's brain tissue loss in the memory center, and to increased systemic inflammation that taxes the kidneys, thickens the arterial walls, and suppresses immune function. A study from the Rush Alzheimer's Disease Center in Chicago found that adults with consistently dysregulated morning cortisol patterns had a 41% higher rate of measurable cognitive decline over a 7-year follow-up period. The practical prescription: keep your phone outside the bedroom entirely, or at minimum, commit to a 30-minute phone-free morning window. Use that time for 3 things: hydration, gentle movement, and natural light exposure. Step outside or open your blinds within 10 minutes of waking. Natural light in the morning resets your suprachiasmatic nucleus. Think of that as the master clock in your brain that coordinates every organ's daily rhythm. This single habit, paired with warm water first thing, creates a biological morning reset that compounds over weeks into measurably lower inflammatory markers. Now we're at the halfway point, and I have to ask, if what we've covered so far is already changing how you see your daily routine, would you do something for me right now? Hit that like button, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. We publish new content every week specifically for adults over 60 who want to age on their own terms, not on disease's timeline. Now let's get to the habits that really matter, because the next 4 are the ones I see causing the most irreversible organ damage in my patients. Number 5 will surprise many of you because it's about love, connection, and what loneliness does to the inside of your body. Number 5 is social isolation. Specifically, going more than 48 hours without meaningful face-to-face conversation. Brigham Young University conducted a comprehensive meta-analysis of 148 studies involving over 300,000 participants and concluded that social isolation increases mortality risk by 29%, an impact comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. But what people don't talk about is the specific organ damage pathway. When the human brain, particularly the aging brain, experiences persistent loneliness, it activates a genetic transcription factor called CREB that upregulates the production of pro-inflammatory proteins called cytokines. These cytokines travel through the bloodstream and trigger low-grade chronic inflammation in the liver, the kidneys, and the cardiovascular system. Robert was 78 years old when his daughter brought him to my clinic from Flagstaff, Arizona. He'd lost his wife 2 years prior and had largely stopped leaving the house. His lab work looked like a man whose organs were aging at 1.6 times the normal rate. His CRP, that's C-reactive protein, a marker of systemic inflammation, was through the roof. His kidney filtration rate was declining, and he wasn't sick. He was lonely. We connected him with a weekly community group and a daily walking partner. 8 months later, his CRP had dropped by 43%, and his kidney function had stabilized. The minimum effective dose of social connection, based on research from the University of California, San Diego's Stein Institute for Research on Aging, is 3 meaningful in-person interactions per week. And meaningful means conversations with genuine emotional exchange, not just transactional pleasantries. Phone calls provide partial benefit, video calls more so. But in-person interaction activates oxytocin release and vagal nerve stimulation that no screen can fully replicate. The synergy tip: combine social time with light physical activity. A 20-minute walk with a friend creates both the social cortisol regulation and the physical movement benefits simultaneously, effectively doubling the anti-inflammatory impact. Number 4 is the one I mentioned at the beginning, the habit I personally practiced for years without understanding its consequences. Number 4 is mouth breathing during sleep. If you snore, if you wake up with a dry mouth, if you feel unrested despite 7 or 8 hours in bed, you may be a chronic mouth breather during sleep, and the damage this causes to aging organs is extraordinary and almost completely underappreciated by mainstream medicine. Here's what happens. When you breathe through your mouth during sleep, you bypass the nasal passages, which are designed to filter, humidify, and most critically, add nitric oxide to the air before it reaches your lungs. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator. Think of it as a natural pipe expander that keeps your blood vessels flexible and open. Adults over 65 already produce 40 to 50% less nitric oxide than younger adults, according to research from the National Institutes of Health. Chronic mouth breathing during sleep essentially eliminates what little nitric oxide production you have, leading to vascular constriction, elevated nighttime blood pressure, reduced oxygen delivery to organs, and disrupted deep sleep architecture. Stanford sleep researcher Dr. William Dement's work demonstrated that for every hour of deep, slow-wave sleep lost per night, which mouth breathing directly causes, the body produces 30% less human growth hormone that night. In adults over 70, this matters enormously because growth hormone is the primary hormonal driver of cellular repair across the liver, kidneys, and cardiac tissue. The simple intervention that changed my life personally: nasal breathing tape. It's a small piece of medical-grade adhesive tape placed gently over the lips during sleep to encourage nasal breathing. Clinical trials at the Karolinska Institute in Sweden found that consistent nasal breathing during sleep reduced participants' nighttime blood pressure by an average of 14 points systolic over 60 days. The synergy tip is to combine nasal breathing training with humming for 5 minutes before bed. Humming generates nasal nitric oxide production at levels 15 times higher than quiet nasal breathing, a technique validated by the same Karolinska research group. All scientific references for these studies are linked in the description below. Number 3 is probably the most universally practiced harmful habit on this list, and it's one that carries enormous emotional weight, so I want to approach it with the care it deserves. Number 3 is suppressing or dismissing your own emotional pain. The science of psychoneuroimmunology, the study of how psychological states directly alter immune and organ function, has produced some of the most compelling evidence in modern medicine. A study from Ohio State University's Institute for Behavioral Medicine Research found that adults who chronically suppress emotional expression have measurably higher blood levels of interleukin-6, a pro-inflammatory cytokine directly linked to heart disease, liver fibrosis, and kidney degradation. The magnitude of the difference was not subtle. Emotionally suppressed adults showed interleukin-6 levels 2.4 times higher than emotionally expressive peers of the same age. For adults who grew up in generations that valued stoicism, who were taught, "Don't complain, keep busy, just get on with it," this is not a personal failing. It is a cultural inheritance. But your organs don't distinguish between cultural conditioning and deliberate suppression. They respond to the biochemistry. The practical pathway here is not therapy in the clinical sense, though therapy is profoundly beneficial. It is expressive writing. Research by psychologist Dr. James Pennebaker at the University of Texas found that writing about emotionally meaningful experiences for just 15 to 20 minutes, 3 to 4 times per week, led to significant reductions in inflammatory markers, fewer doctor visits, and improved immune function, effects that were even stronger in adults over 65, possibly because they had more accumulated emotional material to process. The synergy tip: pair expressive writing with the phone-free morning habit from number 6. Those first quiet minutes of the day, before the world demands anything of you, are the most fertile time to let what's true about how you feel come to the surface without judgment. Now we're at number 2, and this is the one that I promised would surprise you, the one that most people over 70 are doing with the sincere belief that it is helping them. Number 2 is drinking less water because you're afraid of nighttime trips to the bathroom. This is so common in my practice that I've started asking every patient over 70 specifically about it. And the pattern is almost always the same. Somewhere in their late 60s or early 70s, they started waking up 2, 3, 4 times a night to urinate. So they made a logical decision. They cut back on water, especially in the afternoons and evenings. It makes perfect intuitive sense. And it is slowly destroying their kidneys. Here's the physiology. Your kidneys require a minimum daily fluid volume to perform their primary function, filtering waste from the blood. When intake drops below approximately 6 cups of water per day, the kidneys begin concentrating urine so severely that the resulting chemical environment, high in ammonia, urea, and crystalline minerals, begins to damage the delicate tubular structures within the kidney tissue itself. Research from the National Kidney Foundation found that adults over 70 who chronically underhydrate lose kidney filtration capacity at a rate 3.2 times faster than adequately hydrated peers. But here's what they don't tell you. The nighttime urination that triggered the water reduction in the first place is often caused not by too much water, but by a condition called nocturnal polyuria, where the kidneys, which are supposed to produce concentrated small amounts of urine at night, continue producing large dilute volumes because of hormonal dysregulation related to low daytime hydration and poor sleep architecture. In other words, drinking less water is often making the nighttime problem worse. The solution is strategic hydration timing. Consume the majority of your daily fluid intake, aim for 8 to 9 cups total, between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m., and reduce intake gradually after 5 p.m. Also add a small amount of natural sea salt or an electrolyte mineral to your morning and midday water. This significantly improves cellular water retention, meaning your body needs less total volume to stay functionally hydrated. Research from the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition found this electrolyte-paired hydration strategy reduced nighttime urination frequency by 38% in adults over 70, while improving daytime kidney filtration markers. And now we arrive at number 1. The habit that, in 27 years of clinical practice, I believe causes more silent, cumulative organ damage in adults over 70 than any other single behavior. And I promise you, you will not have guessed this one. Number 1 is not eating enough protein, specifically because you've been told, or assumed, that protein is hard on the kidneys and bad for older bodies. This myth is one of the most medically consequential pieces of misinformation circulating in senior health culture, and it may be shortening lives by years. Let me explain exactly what happens when an aging body doesn't get enough protein and why the consequences are so catastrophic. After the age of 70, your body experiences a phenomenon called anabolic resistance. Your muscles, organs, and immune cells become dramatically less efficient at extracting and using the amino acids in the protein you do eat. This means that where a 30-year-old might need 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight to maintain muscle and organ integrity, a 75-year-old needs closer to 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram. Yet studies consistently show that the majority of adults over 70 are consuming well below even the lower threshold. What does protein deficiency do to aging organs specifically? Your liver uses amino acids to produce albumin, the primary protein that maintains fluid pressure in your blood and tissues. When albumin drops, as it does with chronic low protein intake, fluid leaks from the bloodstream into surrounding tissue, causing edema, reducing blood volume, and forcing your heart and kidneys to compensate under pressure. Your immune system, which manufactures antibodies from amino acid pools, loses its frontline defense capability. Your heart muscle, the one organ that never stops working, begins catabolizing its own tissue for energy when protein stores run low, a process researchers at the Cleveland Clinic have directly linked to the accelerated cardiac aging seen in malnourished seniors. The fear that protein damages kidneys comes from research conducted in people with pre-existing kidney disease, and it has been dangerously overgeneralized. For adults with normal kidney function, a meta-analysis published in the Journal of the American Medical Directors Association found that higher protein intake in adults over 65 was associated with a 21% reduction in mortality risk and significantly better preservation of physical function over time. Evelyn was 81 years old, from Charlotte, North Carolina, and her family brought her to me concerned about her rapid physical decline. She'd lost 18 pounds in a year, was barely able to walk from her bedroom to the kitchen, and had been told by a previous provider to go easy on protein to protect her kidneys. Her kidneys were fine. Her protein intake was catastrophically low. We worked with a registered dietitian to rebuild her dietary protein to 1.4 grams per kilogram of body weight, distributed across 3 meals. Because after 70, your muscles can only use about 30 to 40 grams of protein at a time due to anabolic resistance. 6 months later, Evelyn had regained 11 pounds of lean muscle mass. She was walking to her garden and back. Her daughter called my office crying with gratitude. The practical prescription. Aim for 25 to 35 grams of complete protein at each meal. Eggs, Greek yogurt, fish, lean poultry, legumes combined with grains. And spread it evenly throughout the day rather than concentrating it at dinner. The synergy tip is profoundly important here. Pair your protein intake with resistance exercise. Even light resistance, chair stands, wall push-ups, resistance bands, within 2 hours of eating protein. Research from the University of Nottingham showed that this combination increases muscle protein synthesis in adults over 70 by up to 67%, compared to protein intake alone. Your muscles and organs need both the raw material and the stimulus to rebuild. All of the studies, journals, and research institutions I've mentioned today are linked in the description below. Please review them, share them with your doctor, and bring them into the conversation at your next appointment. Before I close, I want to say something directly to you, because I know that some of you watching this are 72, 76, 80 years old, and you may have just heard 10 habits that you've been practicing for years, maybe decades, and you're feeling something between concern and defeat. Please hear me when I say this. It is not too late. The human body, at every age we have studied, responds to change. The organ damage I've described tonight is not a one-way door. Your liver regenerates, your kidneys adapt, your muscles rebuild, your arteries regain flexibility, your brain grows new connections. What matters is not where you've been, it's what you do this week. Just this week. Pick one habit from this list and begin. You deserve to be independent. You deserve to walk to your mailbox without pain, to hold your grandchildren without getting winded, to wake up in the morning and feel like your body is on your side. That is not a fantasy reserved for the genetically blessed. That is the biological birthright of a well-nourished, well-rested, well-connected human body at any age, and it is still available to you. If this video helped you see your daily life differently, please subscribe to this channel. We are building a community of adults who refuse to accept that decline is inevitable, who believe that information is medicine, and that every week is an opportunity to shift the trajectory of your health. Hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you never miss what we publish next. And now I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell me, which one of these 10 habits do you recognize in yourself, and what is the first change you're going to make this week? I read every single comment, and your answer might just be the thing that helps someone else in this community take their first step. See you in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.